Hello. Um, this is just a little video to go along with an activity that we are starting, where we take some questions around the areas of exploration, which are a way of framing conversations around texts that are part of this particular course. And we're going to read a few versions of Little Red Riding Hood and think about some questions and do some work around that. But I wanted to create this video, I guess, to make sure that I had communicated to everyone, whether you make it that day in the Zoom and as we start this activity, something that I will keep communicating either by expressing it directly or also just indirectly in the work that I'm asking you to do in the class. And that's around the question of like, what is our role as readers, right, in interpreting and understanding text? And I think it's important to know that one of the underlying assumptions of this course is that um, it is the role of the reader to interpreting and understanding text is huge, right? And so I was thinking about this as I was walking to work the other day, and I'll try to make this just a short story that connects with what I'm trying to say here. But I was listening to this audiobook that's not on this subject, right? But it was just it related in that the audiobook author was giving this example where he said, if people from the 1700s were to read the sentence, I'm going to hop on the American Airlines flight and go to Disney World, they wouldn't even know how to interpret that sentence, right? It would literally be meaningless to them. And so what that made me think about, even though the context of that was something different at the time, what it made me think about as a teacher of literature and writing and language is that in each text that we encounter, there is a context, right? And there's a culture in which it was created. And part of our job as readers, if we're really going to interpret that text with any kind of integrity, like giving that text like its fair due, then we are really pretty obligated to investigate a little bit into that. So doing things like looking up a little bit about the author, and looking up a little bit about the time period, what was going on at the time, right? Understanding that there's the text itself and what the text says and what we understand from it, but also looking at it in terms of its time period. And part of why I love this activity is that you've got this very classic story and you're looking at its original version and you're looking at kind of a more modern, humorous poem version, and then like an even more modern poem version that has a little bit of a particular lens that it looks through. And I won't say more than that because I don't want to ruin the activity for you. But the idea is you're reading these three versions of the story and you're starting to have some conversations that hopefully will get at this question where you start to internalize, like, what is your role as a reader when you're looking to interpret and understand these texts? I think sometimes we expect the text to do a lot of the work for us, and we wind up saying things, and for good reasons, saying things like, well, this just isn't, this writing isn't clear, or I didn't really, this book wasn't interesting to me or engaging, and those are valid experiences that we have as readers. But when there is a text that you're assigned and as a course you have to come up with something with, then that's a moment where you have to remember that an underlying assumption of this course is that it is the reader's responsibility to try to bring something. And one of the things that we all explore in this class is that there are a lot of ways to do that, a lot of approaches. And we've already talked about the idea of looking at text through the lens of global issues, right? Like, how is that text trying to contribute to some larger conversation that is a conversation in our world? And that would be true even if it was a global, it's very clear if it's a current global issue, but even if we're reading something written 50 years ago or 100 years ago, we can also ask that same question, like, in that time period, what was the global issue maybe that we could connect with that text? And the areas of exploration is just another lens, another way to look at text and try to find ways in as readers. But that is our responsibility, right? To find a way in, even though maybe it's not the text that we would pick up on our own to read for pleasure, or maybe it is, but the idea is that as readers, if our goal is to become better interpreters of text, then we do have some work to do. So that's all for my little talk. I'm going to attach it to this assignment. Just want to make sure that I keep communicating this and that I communicate it here. And it's just, a part of the course, the underlying piece of the course. And I hope that it empowers you to know that as a reader, there are so many ways and angles, and that's really what we're going to explore this year is, how can I approach this text, even though maybe the first approach you make isn't one that is really working for you. How can you find another way so that you can approach that text and find something that you can say about it, right? So when I say interpret, that means what can you write about it? What can you speak about it? What can you discuss about? How can you find something that you can say about a text that maybe at first you're not totally sure how to enter into? All right, have a great day, and I'll see you on the Zoom soon.